Did the Carolina Panthers actually do something good? I don't believe it. What? Welcome everybody to JJ9 News, where we talk all things NFL all the time. I'm Jared Garrett, representing the 904 from the 602, and today we're going to talk about the trade that just went down between these two teams behind it right here, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Carolina Panthers, because the Pittsburgh Steelers have traded away wide receiver Diontae Johnson to the Carolina Panthers in exchange for quarterback Dante Jackson. There's also a pick swap involved in there, where the Steelers will get Carolina's 6th-round pick, and the Panthers will get Pittsburgh's 7th-round pick. So the Panthers move down about 60 spots in the draft, and the Panthers get their new wide receiver one, or at the very least, a weapon for Bryce Young. I want to talk mainly about what this trade means for the Carolina Panthers and why I love this trade for Carolina so much. I think Dan Morgan did a phenomenal job here, already better than Fitterer by just virtue of this move. I know the bar is on the ground, but I'll talk about what this means for Carolina. But first, I just want to briefly talk about what this means for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, massive hole now at wide receiver. They have no wideouts outside of George Pickens of any note. You had a feeling that he would be dealt. There were talks about the Steelers listening to trade offers. The Arizona Cardinals were supposedly in on him, needing a lot of help at wide receiver, especially if Hollywood Brown doesn't come back. But the Carolina Panthers are the team that Johnson ends up going to. You have to think this move, now that Dante Jackson no longer on the team, they have to think that they're drafting a wide receiver early, probably 2 receivers. This was probably always going to be the plan, especially because Dante Johnson, his contract was up at the end of the season as it was. Maybe the Steelers do get a free agent like DJ Chark on a 1-year deal for depth purposes, but obviously Pittsburgh needs a ton of help at wide receiver, as was to be expected. Probably not going to make any big splashes in free agency at the position. It's a weak free agency class. Calvin Ridley, the best target on the board, and it looks like he's going back to Jacksonville. I'll talk more about that later today. And obviously, T. Higgins is available, but there's no way that the Cincinnati Bengals trade T. Higgins in the division to the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's no way that's going to happen. And if it does, the price would be through the roof. The Steelers would have to pay that rival fee, that divisional fee. So obviously that's not happening. So look for the Steelers to address wide receiver in the draft. Having said that, for the Carolina Panthers, this is a phenomenal move, and I like to some extent what they're doing in free agency. Diontae Johnson, his 5 seasons in the NFL, very, very productive player. 391 catches, 4,363 yards, 25 touchdowns. Over 5 seasons, his average, 78 catches, 872 yards, 5 touchdowns. Made the Pro Bowl 2 years ago back in 2021. Last season, Johnson, 51 catches, 717 yards, 5 touchdowns. There were some issues with him taking plays off as a blocker in the running game. There were some noticeable effort issues. But at the end of the day, if you can keep him engaged, he's an extremely crisp and solid route runner, one of the best route runners in the game. You saw that this season with the 3 straight games he had with a touchdown. For some perspective, just to show you how much help the Panthers need at wide receiver, only 1 receiver had more receptions and receiving yards than Johnson did last year, and that was Adam Thielen, who is 34 years old. You can't exactly rely on that. Now, trading away Dante Jackson for Diontae Johnson, I think that's a phenomenal move by the Panthers. Jackson was probably going to get cut anyways. He probably was not going to be on the Carolina Panthers in 2024 as it was. He was counting $15.7 million against the cap. He's 29 years old next season. He's probably past his prime age-wise for cornerbacks. He was burnt repeatedly over his time in Carolina. He tore his Achilles in 2022, didn't really play all that well in 2023, so who knows what's happening with Dante Jackson. Obviously, is it just a straight swap? Diontae Johnson, Dante Jackson, major upgrade for the Carolina Panthers in that regard. Now, obviously, Carolina's defense is taking a massive hit this offseason. No one can deny that. You lost Frankie Louvu. You lost Brian Burns to the New York Giants. You lost Arturo Gross-Matos to the San Francisco 49ers. Granted, he wasn't the best. I think San Francisco overpaid a lot. Rotational defensive end, making $18 million over 2 years. I think Panthers kind of dodged a bullet there. But he lost Jeremy Chinn. Granted, he didn't really fit Evero's system in Carolina, but he's down in Washington. Now you lost Dante Jackson. You lost about half your starters on the defensive side. But that's not the point. No one thinks Carolina is competing this season. This season is not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is to give Bryce Young weapons to work with. The Panthers threw Bryce Young in a terrible, terrible situation last year. They had no weapons whatsoever, no offensive line. Granted, I don't think Bryce Young was that good as it was. There was nothing really that wowed me about his game. Not a whole lot of incredible throws that he made. He had that nice throw against Chicago on Thursday night, but aren't really too many throws in the back of my mind that I can think of right now. When he went down for a brief moment in time in that game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, Week 17, which the Jags had to win to have any shot at winning the division title, I was actually concerned because I thought Andy Dolan gave the Panthers a better chance to win than Bryce Young. I think his arm strength isn't the best. Obviously, the height is a bit of an issue. Having said that, though, he didn't really have anything to work with last year. Now, you're upgrading on offense. Defensively, you can take a hit because the whole point of this year is evaluation. Is Bryce Young the guy? Well, now he doesn't really have a lot of excuses. You gave him $150 million worth of guards in Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis. Yeah, it might be a bit of an overpay, but protect Bryce Young at all costs because he wasn't protected last year. You gave him a starting caliber wide receiver. You didn't have any last year besides Thielen, who was on the older side of things. Terrence Marshall has done nothing. Jonathan Mingo, yes, he was a rookie. He did nothing. Laviska Shenault, they had no plan for him. They thought he was going to play running back for a brief moment in time. That didn't work out. I could have told you that a mile away because we tried that in Jacksonville. Spoiler alert, it didn't work out. DJ Chark didn't do a whole lot there. I know I said that the Steelers might cite DJ Chark for depth purposes. That's a lot different than the Carolina Panthers, who tried to make him an integral part of the offense, and obviously that didn't work. Now you have Adam Thielen, you have Diontae Johnson, you still need one more receiver, no one's denying that. You have some second-round picks to work with in that Brian Burns trade, and on top of that, it's a very deep wide receiver draft class, according to most experts, so you still probably need to draft a wideout, but you can go into the season with a starting three wide of Thielen, Johnson, and a top rookie, and honestly, that's not terrible. It's not the best, but it's middle of the pack. It's not terrible by any means. It should have been the plan to surround Bryce Young with weapons from the start. I don't know why when I made that trade up with the Chicago Bears, they gave away DJ Moore instead of Brian Burns. They completely botched that situation. Having said that, though, that is in the past. And now Bryce Young should have a quality receiver to work with for the first time in his NFL career that is still in his prime. And you only give up a pick swap to do it. You didn't really give up Dante Jackson because he wasn't going to be on the team this year in all likelihood due to his cap hit. Moving up 60 picks to get a receiver of Diontae Johnson's caliber, yeah, that's a good move. That's a good move. And on top of that, if it works out, great. If it doesn't work out, guess what? Johnson's a free agent after the season. You're not cap tied to him. He's a free agent at the end of the 2024 season. You can easily get a compensatory pick in 2026 if that's the direction you want to go in. Keep in mind, Gabe Davis, Darnell Mooney got $13 million annually each. Darnell Mooney with the Atlanta Falcons, 3 years, $39 million. Jacksonville Jaguars gave Gabe Davis $39 million, 3 years. I talked about that in a previous video. Go check that out if you haven't already. I'll leave a link in the upper right corner and in the description. And obviously on paper, Diontae Johnson is better than Gabe Davis and Darnell Mooney. You have to think Johnson will command more than what Davis did and what Mooney did. Could get $17, $18 million on the open market next season, which means if the Panthers don't want to sign a lot of free agents in 2025 or they're able to, they can get a third or a fourth round compensatory pick for Diontae Johnson. So basically you gave up Dante Jackson, a guy who wasn't going to be on the team. You gave up a 6th round pick. You got a starting caliber wide receiver and a 7th round pick. So you didn't really lose any draft picks in the process. And on top of that, you either got your receiver of the future or you potentially got a 4th round compensatory pick in 2026. So this is just a very smart business by Dan Morgan and the Carolina Panthers to undo the mess that Fitterer made in Carolina over his time. One of the worst GMs, maybe the worst GM of all time. But it seems like the Panthers might be trending in a slightly more upward direction. I like the Canales move at head coach, and I really like this trade for Carolina. Finally, Bryce Young has a receiver to work with, and we'll see if Johnson can be good in Carolina, just like he was for most of his time in Pittsburgh. Even if it was a bit inconsistent at times, at his peak, Johnson is a very, very good receiver. But what are your thoughts on this trade? Who do you think won the trade? Do you think the Panthers won the trade? Do you think the Steelers won the trade? Do you think Diontae Johnson's going to help out Bryce Young? Do you think that Dante Jackson will make an impact in the secondary in Pittsburgh? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. That's going to do it for this episode of JJ9 News. Be sure you like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check my main channel, JR9, where we talk all things NFL history all the time. Until next time, this is JR9 signing off. And as always, go Jags.